You are all weirdos.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the A Weird Science Manga and Anime Podcast, and this specific episode being the beginning, the start of our My Hero Academia Reading Club podcast. I'm here, as always, with my man, Luke Hollywood. What up, Luke?
Oh, what up, Jim?
What up? And here we go. We're starting off in Chapter 1 of the My Hero Academia, but before we get into that, let me remind you, go over to Twitter at Weird Manga. Follow us. We will follow you on back.
Boom.
Then go over to our Instagram at Weird Science Manga and see what we have going on over there.
Instance.
And then finally go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Weird Science Manga to help us out for all the things that we do here on the feed, including all these new reading clubs that we hope get everybody involved. This is more the idea of getting people involved with manga. And so when we did this, we picked some of the best. And to me, the greatest starting point is this
Whoa.
My Hero Academia, and this chapter in particular. It really does give you everything that you need to see how great manga can be in my mind. But what are we starting with? What is it called, Luke?
This is My Hero Academia number 1, Izuku Midoriya Origin.
Yeah, and we kick into this, and we said it before in our intro deal that you want to get character and world. You want to get some rules set. You want to get characters that you're going to get behind. And boy, it does that here. Even at the start, you end up having a page where you don't know what's going on. And this happens a lot with the manga. When you get to that first page, especially the first page of a new series, you kind of get thrown into it. But it's so easy to relate to a thing that you know is about heroes. And you have a kid, Midoriya, who is protecting another kid from being bullied. And you see he's being bullied by a guy that he says Ka-chan, but it's somebody that ends up having a fire ability. These are two of our main characters, obviously, as we go forward. But it's really a universal thing of anybody who sticks up for a hero or sticks up for a bullied kid is a hero to me. If you go against a bully, that's a great way to start. But also, looking at him, he's not real big. He's going against these guys who end up looking like they're just monsters at points. And even that, like, you think you could be a hero, there's no way. And you get that overall narration of not everybody's born equal. And it hasn't set our main character Midoriya back as much as it would me. I would have given up. I wouldn't be involved. So that kicks in, though, and it gets right into it, where you end up having a giant battle. And I like the way this goes, too, because this isn't a real important battle.
No.
We find out that this big monster guy there, it's not real important. It's just somebody who has a quirk and is using it to do some bad things.
This is just the everyday life. This is the normal world that we have here.
And I like the idea that at this point, where you almost get, as it goes through, this guy is not really a threat. They even have people down, like, really throwing shade at him at one point. Like, look at this guy. He's this. And oh, my God.
The traffic.
And so when that happens, you do have all of these heroes just converge on it to try. They really come off like influencers more than heroes at the beginning of this. And I think it's well played, where everybody's just converging, trying to stop this guy to be and look like the greatest of all time. But we'll see that these heroes, they might have their hearts in the wrong place. But before we get into even that, we then go off to just one quick page to tell you the rules that most people have developed superpowers, these quote-unquote quirks, and the world has changed since then. You end up having a bioluminescent baby was born. This started a trend with a lot of people, and including, like, at the moment, most kids being born, whatever, they will develop a superpower, some better than others, all that stuff. But that's like the new world order. 80% of the world's population are superhumans. This ends up making up a profession that is superheroes, straight from the comics, and you can end up really making money and becoming famous doing this. But we get to this big fight again, and as this is going on, we now fully get introduced to our main character, Midoriya, who is a fanboy. And me and you laugh all the time because as they're watching this fight go, and you end up having a hero that shows up, Kameu Woods, that Midoriya is very into, and he has his hero notes there. Look.
Oh, he's been writing his hero notes.
He has his notebook, and he's doing things. And as this is going on, you have some people throwing shade at this villain. Others are like, yeah, I'm going to be late. Yeah, I'm another hero. It seems very passé at this point. But as people are watching, this Kameo Wood shows up, and this is when Midoriya shows. He is a fanboy. The guy standing next to him says, oh, what are you? One of them fanboys? And if you say that normally, it feels like you're making fun of him. But Midoriya looks and he's like, yeah, I guess I am. And it's kind of a nice little interaction.
Because he's cheering on with him. So it's not really like too much shade because they're all cheering on together.
And it's funny because most of the things going on are the crowd talking about this guy, this monster. Why would he ruin a quirk like that? Why is he doing this? But Midoriya's into the heroes and really analyzing them. And it's kind of a fun little play here where he even knows that he's going to use a special attack. It's very easy to jump into this because it's very much video game-esque and a lot of other things because he's like, oh, he's going to use his preemptive binding, the lacquered prison. And I thought that was really cool. And you end up where, as this is going on, all of a sudden you get one of my favorite characters ever just fly in, and you end up having Mount Lady, who comes in and kicks this villain. And again, it's the idea of, I want to be the best. I want to get all the sponsorships, and I want to go. And she ends up like, hey, thanks for getting my debut. But it's like, the butt, as she shows her butt. It makes me laugh every time. And I'm Mount Lady. Everybody's taking pictures. Everybody's in awe. And even with that, Midoriya's writing in his notes like, okay, gigantism, that's not a real great quirk because it can cause damage. Like, he's really thinking things through and going, he's not as impressed with the fame or whatever. He just likes what they do, their quirks. He's very into this. As you are explained, if you end up becoming popular and big, you can get government pay, fame and glory. All these things are what seems to drive this new phase of heroes as we see them even fighting for the spotlight going on here. So it's a really good intro with a couple pages that set up the world, set up in my mind. At this point, you don't get that the heroes are kind of jerks or anything, but you see that everything's like larger than life and they're coming in, and it really does play off to me like influencers, as I said. But then we go off to school and we see the whole deal where everybody wants to be one of these heroes. And the teacher is in the classroom. We get some school shenanigans here, right? And the teacher says, hey, everybody, we have our career forms. You're going to fill out what you want to be. What the heck? This teacher is sus, I'm telling you.
Just throws them away.
Throws them up in the air. And everybody goes nuts. I mean, this look that he has to it. He's like, what am I kidding? You all want to be heroes. And throws it up in the air. The idea of seeing this classroom now, everybody's showing their quirks. There are some sus quirks here.
I'm loving these quirks.
My favorite of all time is the kid with the eyes, who it seems like his quirk, stretchy eyes. And so what's funny to me, if you're reading this thinking, oh man, superheroes, that's cool. You start to think like, what is that guy going to be able to do? Like, what kind of superpower? And that's the thing too. You're set up with, not all the quirks are useful. Not all the quirks are going to make you the biggest superstar of all, but everybody seems to have one. Everybody, and except our main kid, that we'll find out in one of the saddest things you'll ever read or watch. But while this is going on, you end up having Bakugo, who we did see at the beginning, was the kid with the firepower at the beginning. He ends up, everybody stop it. You guys are nonsense. Your quirks are nothing to me. I'm going to go to UA, which is the university where all the heroes go. He says they're nonsense, so why even bother with them? He's telling the teacher that. So all of this goes where, even at the beginning, you're not trying to make Bakugo any bit of a nice character, right?
He is not. Like, he's dissing the extras. And then when it comes to, we already know he was putting the beat down on Midoriya.
Yeah, he's a bully.
He's horrible to Midoriya.
He's awful. And the weird thing about it is, as you go even from this first chapter, you get the idea that he just hates Midoriya because Midoriya is kind of like a hero, but he doesn't have a quirk. We'll find out. But the idea is he just hates the idea that anybody's trying to do anything good because he's the best and nobody should even bother. But the big thing of this is he mentions in this why he would want to be a hero. He kind of spells out the idea that he's going to be the richest guy ever, and he's going to be bigger than All Might.
He wants to be a hero for all the wrong reasons, and Midoriya wants it for all the right reasons.
Yeah, and that's where you get that. When we finally do find out here, where they're like, hey, and the teacher, like, oh yeah, Midoriya, you're going to apply at US. Why does he even mention this?
He throws him under the bus. This teacher is big time sus.
I hate this teacher. Where he's like, oh, by the way, even with that, you know for a fact that that teacher knows that Bakugo doesn't like Midoriya and probably is aware, probably has watched the bullying go on and turns the other way and throws this there just to make it so that Midoriya is going to get bullied more. Oh, yeah, by the way, after all this trash talk, Midoriya, you're going to go and apply to UA. Bakugo gets so mad. You quirkless piece of poop. Why are you doing that? You're trying to upstage me. Midoriya's never doing that. And I think that the brilliance of this first chapter, which I'll tell you, me and you love it. I mean, there is not many things that we have read that we keep saying it's near perfect. The idea, you already realize somehow that Midoriya is a good kid, even if it's just at the beginning because he's protecting from bullies and all this stuff. But he's happy, he's enthusiastic. The idea of people with quirks, he's not angry about it. He loves it. And this is where we first really do find out the idea that he doesn't have one. You're quirkless. You quirkless guy. You're worthless. Why are you trying to be as good as me? Why do you even attempt it? It's ridiculous. And everybody's laughing. And he says, well, you don't have to have a quirk to get into this UA, the university. It's going to be hard, but he's going to give it a try. And so you leave it with that of everybody just laughing at him. I mean, you feel bad for him, but
he doesn't fight back. That's another sign that he's a good kid. He's not like, I'm going to get all you jerks. He's just trying to live his life.
And you're seeing a world here that really, again, sets up, they don't look well on people without quirks.
No.
Because usually you can have somebody who's like, a little kid, I want to be a football player. Oh, you're never going to be able to do that. But you don't get to the point where the whole class is mocking you and laughing because all he says, the worst thing he says is, there's no harm in trying. Like, there's not especially to Bakugo. This is a complete, he takes, I'm bad. He takes everything as a personal insult.
This time it's personal.
Oh my God. But I'll give it to you because then we go off and then we see the progression here then is a slime monster guy, right? Yeah, this guy's bad.
Coming in at downtown, he's stealing something, and I do see it's a nice touch. You do see there's like a lady behind with like a force field bubble up, so he must have stole something off her. And then he goes running. Obviously, he's all gloopy, so it's going to be very difficult to catch him. And everybody, this is more just like the everyday world. Everybody's just watching it go by. Oh, geez, the heroes are probably going to do something. Maybe because of all that craziness this morning. Now, this guy thinks he can just get away with some stealing shenanigans. And then we do see, all in silhouette, a very scrawny coffin dude. So we don't know what's going on with him. And then next thing, a big muscular dude comes up from behind the crowd. Wonder where he came from. And he kind of bulges in and he says, as somebody else says, there's no end to them. Yes, there is. And why, you ask? Because I am here. And he comes in with a big smile and a boom.
That's All Might. We'll find out. This is the big superhero.
Number
the
one hero.
All-time great. Yeah. But while we do that, then we go back to the school a bit. And you do have Bakugo who finds, and this is one of those things that's pretty much like anybody finding your diary. And things like that. He ends up finding Midoriya's hero notes. He ends up having these notebooks that pretty much say hero analysis for my future. And it is number 18 or 13.
He's been doing these for a while.
Yeah, he's been doing these. But it's, again, he's analyzing things for his future. So he's going to try. And they even mention, I thought it was well done, where they say, hey, just getting great grades isn't enough to be a hero. So you are setting up that this kid is a smart kid. And in my mind at this point, he is kind of getting the idea if he does enough research, it may be able to help him. He may be able to figure out a way that he could become a hero without a quirk because he's going to research everything and try to figure it out. Bakugo sees this and pretty much is like, oh, this is ridiculous. Look at this guy for his future. You don't have a future. And ends up slamming his hands into the notebook, which ends up catching it on fire. It's kind of like, it kind of blows up, but it doesn't ruin it. It just ends up being kind of messed up. And
crispy fried.
If that's not bad enough, throws it over the railing of the school deal, and it goes into the koi pond underneath, and then says, and this really threw me off at first, especially with the idea where Bakugo says, hey, you want a quirk? Jump off the railing now and maybe you'll die, and your next life you'll have a quirk. And Midoriya doesn't say anything. Again, he kind of walks away from it. He seems upset, but you have the bully boys that are with Bakugo. He's not alone. He has these two buddies. And the one's like, man, why doesn't he say anything? It's just always... But again, Midoriya isn't going to fight back because he doesn't have a quirk, but also he's a good kid. And he ends up where, when he's muttering, it threw me off. It was like, yeah, if I kill myself, you would get in trouble for, bullying me to suicide. And I thought, that's a little dark.
It is a bit grim. And this is the worst that we see Bakugo. Like, yeah, destroying the notebook is one thing, but telling him to go jump off the building, that's a bit extreme. And that's the worst he gets.
Yeah, and Midoriya turns around and he's going to say something, but then he doesn't because, Bakugo, flash the fire hands. And then he goes down. I like when he yells at the fish. It's not fish food.
Stupid fish.
And so he's just like, yeah, that would have gotten you in trouble. You should think before you speak. But then we go and now get the waterworks out. Because here's where we go. We go back, and it's a flashback where you see that Midoriya is a fan, and he's such a fan of All Might. He's watching one of the earliest All Might videos where there's a big explosion of fire and everybody's like reacting. Oh my God, who's this hero that's coming in and out, saving everybody? And the big thing that he's smiling. That is huge for Midoriya. The idea that he is a hero, but smiles. Now, Midoriya thinks that it's cool because the smile is like to show you that everything's fine or that, this is the big deal. It's funny, by the end of this chapter, we find out it's not quite that, what the smile is, but it's really cool for a little kid who ends up saying, I want to grow up and be just like him, just like All Might. We do the worst cut here to break your heart. It slices me through because right as he's saying it, he's so cool, I want to be just like him. The doctor says, nope, he's never going to have a quirk. And we get a rule here that's kind of a funny deal where even... he's fourth generation. His mom has quirks. She can move objects,
float stuff,
like kind of close by. It's not a great quirk, again. And the father can breathe fire. A little better, right?
That's pretty cool. So you'd expect something floating, breathing fire. That's what Midoriya would have.
It could be cool. A combo. It could be anything. It could have been cool. He doesn't have any, and the doctor points out that it is an extra joint in the pinky toe. It's kind of a funny thing to throw out there, but it's the idea of evolution. Once humanity just says, you evolve where you don't need that joint. Once that disappears, that seems to be the next evolution, is getting these superpowers, these quirks and things like that. Midoriya has that joint. He will never have a quirk. And the mother tries to say, well, maybe he will. Maybe it's just, no, it's there. It's fully spelled out. So it's not, it's spelled out, 100%. There's no chance. He's never going to get a quirk, and this just breaks his heart. And even earlier, like his mom says, that video has so many views, but almost all of them are Midoriya. He's always watched. She can't watch it. It's too scary. But he goes home again from this, finding out he'll never have a quirk, which you should think that means I'll never be a hero. And he keeps watching that video, and he is crying and saying, Mom, isn't that cool? He smiles. I want to be like that. I want to be a hero. And
tears in his eyes.
Just crying. His mom breaks down, and I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing. What Midoriya says is at this point he needed his mom to tell him, you can still be a hero, but she didn't say that. So
just
everything,
sorry.
She's like, I'm sorry. It's nobody's fault, but she, you would think, any sort of thing, if I passed it on to my kids or whatnot, you would think, it's my fault. Oh my God, what happened? So she's crying. Again, not making her bad or anything, but he needed that encouragement to be a hero. And the best thing about him is, and especially in this verse, he does not give up. He ends up, we already know that he's doing his hero notes for the future. He has not given up on being a hero because of how big All Might was to him, but just how much he wants to help people. It really comes down to that. And that's why I think it is such a great first chapter. And really, we didn't even say an all ages chapter by all stretches. I mean, this is so great for any age.
Anybody can jump onto this.
And because everybody's always run into something that they want to do and somebody's told them they can't. And this is so extreme of that, and he just won't give up. You can't help but love him.
Universal relatability.
Yeah, it's so great the way they do that. The problem is now, without his quirk, he's walking home from school. He got his hero notes. He got it out of the koi pond. He's going home here, and he gets attacked by the slime monster.
So Slime Monster.
Obviously, Slime Monster somehow has escaped All Might. We don't really know the particulars of that, or even when you're first reading it, what All Might would do or whatnot, but we did see that it's that same big hero. So what happened, we don't know, but he jumps up and envelopes himself around Midoriya in a way that he's going to hijack his body. And, thanks a lot. I really need it. I didn't think All Might was going to show up all of this, but you really get the spell out. It gets I mean, maybe this is a little scary for real.
This is probably the scariest bit, like, because he's choking. And
he's going to die. He's going to die.
And if you think about it, like, we just had, he just got bullied, got told to jump off the roof. Then we had the sad flashback, and now he's going to die. This has been a very bad afternoon for Midoriya.
It's not a good afternoon. And as this is going on, just the progression. And really, the idea that this became huge anime as well, it shows you that. And this first so cinematic, the way things play out. Because as he's getting choked out and this slime monster is saying, don't worry, you'll die soon. So don't worry about this. I'm just going to use your body for a little. The hero notes falls. And there it is, like, oh my, he did all this work. Like,
his costume design.
Yep, his costume design you see there, and even some notes. All Might does come back, and you go... with that, the funniest thing about All Might here is he shows up with his groceries. He still has
He was doing the shopping.
Yeah, he was doing the shopping. And if you do go back and see that silhouette, legitimately, he was doing his shopping. They
Straight
were
away.
there.
Yeah, and it kind of comes, like, the shopping is actually a handy tool that he uses here. But we do see he busts out of, like, the sewers like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and he busts out, "Fear not, kids, I am here." So that is his catchphrase. And then he goes, this is one of his signature moves that he uses all the time, naming the punches off the United States, of the different, like, states.
Yeah, he does states, cities, and things. Yeah,
so he has
stuff.
The Texas Smash, which is just this big haymaker of a punch that is so powerful it, like, knocks the wind. Like, Midoriya is like in an air tunnel with his face. And he just goes boom, and the sludge monster just gets, like, blown away by the force of this punch. And so much so that I think it, like, knocks Midoriya out, or the shock of it. He's just looking, and then he can't even... He's just, oh my goodness, it's All Might out of nowhere? What the heck?
Yeah, he has to be woken up then.
After time is gone, he gets a slap on the face, and then All Might is trying to wake him up. Oh, I thought we lost you. It's All Might. And then we do see, here's the number one hero, All Might. He apologizes for getting them all wrapped up in that slime villain business. And a weird thing is he says, this is a strange land to me, and besides, I'm off camera. So again, that's kind of showing that, like, as the number one hero, he is the star of the show. He's always the one, like, in the popularity. Like, they have all eyes are on him, all the cameras are on him all the time. But we do see that he has successfully detained the villain inside the cola bottle that he was doing the shopping earlier on. And he lets out a big burp, so he must have downed that. That
was the funniest thing. I wanted to, when I thought at first, I really would have wished to see him just guzzling it, but you get the burps, and he did. It made me laugh. And the funny thing is when he says, I'm off camera, again, that goes with what ends up happening later and things like that, that a lot of times these heroes are only concerned with popularity and things like that. And All Might comes off, and I mean, you could sit there and imagine All Might talking like this big, I mean, and if you've seen the anime, too, even with that you know that he's just like, I am here, that whole deal. It really plays out well with that. But when he says off camera, that ends up like, kind of throws. But then the funniest thing is when Midoriya's like, oh my God, it's All Might. He's drawn in a different style. Made me giggle for some reason, that whole deal. But yeah, he burps and stuff like that. But really, this ends up being All Might, who not concerned with, like, this is a job he's done that really isn't doing anything for him. You know what I mean? He ends up, it's not on camera. This one kid's here. He does think ahead, again, almost being that idea it's kind of a sus move in my mind that he's already signed his autograph in the hero notes of Midoriya because he knows, like, that's his
what the kid
routine.
wants. That's
right?
what he does to please the bystanders.
And it's not a personal deal. It's not like, can I get, like, what's your name or whatever. He's already done it and just thrown the hero notes aside.
That's part of the hero package to him.
Yeah, and it's really good, even though when he does it, it seems to wreck a bit of the hero notes as well. And it's like 2 pages that he uses. Crazy. But he's going to take the slime monster and go, take him downtown, whatever the deal may be. But you go from there again because he's about to launch up and Midoriya wants to ask him a question.
And that's the thing. Midoriya's tagging him like crazy for the signature. Oh my goodness, it's going to be a family heirloom. But All Might doesn't have time for the chitter chatter. He's got to go. And again, you can catch me on TV. So once again, it's always about keeping up appearances with these pros. And then we see he just kind of kneels down and goes airborne, launches himself with a thanks for your support. Got to keep the fans happy. And then we see he has an extra passenger on air All Might, unfortunately. It was not expected. I do like how he's trying to keep, well, obviously he's always smiling. That's the whole look. And even we do get Midoriya saying he's even drawn differently. So that's the whole aesthetic that we got going on here. But All Might is trying to, keep it professional, but really he is getting annoyed by this fanboy freaking out here. And we do see Midoriya just desperate that he wants to ask all the questions. His mouth flapping open again in the crazy wind. And All Might just tells him, please close your mouth.
I love when he's like, you look disgusting. Close your mouth, please. He's there, flies getting it or whatever. And then you get a little bit of blood.
Uh-oh.
It looks like coming out of All Might's mouth. And that's weird, right? The idea didn't seem like he had any bit of a fight with that slime monster. So these are just little hints as you go of something
wrong.
Not quite right with All Might. Now, progression-wise, this might be the only little nitpick that I have, but it plays out and you figure it out. But you never get that idea fully that bottle has fallen. But I think that's the play here because you end up going where they're going around. I swear, Midoriya is going to end up pulling All Might's pants off the way he's doing that, right? Oh, my goodness. What is this, the cartoons? You end up where all this, though, is Midoriya trying desperately to ask him, again, this question, and All Might, come on, kid, I don't have time for this, I gotta go. But at one point, he does tell Midoriya, which made me laugh, just go away. And I can't, I'll die. I mean...
That's a good point. They're airborne.
We end up seeing a weird point of view as you're going through here. You realize that it's a slime monster then where the bottle fell out of All Might's pants. He had it in his pants, and because of Midoriya grabbing them all, it did fall. And we see this narration of that slime monster again looking to figure out, okay, I need another body. I got away from All Might, but now I'm going to have to fight him. I need something. And it just so happens that Bakugo and the Bully Boys, they're walking up to this bottle and even kicks it at one point. And the thing of this with the idea that Bakugo does have a quirk, this is a great person to take over. And in a horrific panel, ends up doing that, ends up taking over. And we do get some rules as this goes on as well that you end up having, kind of control a quirk, kind of not fighting back or whatnot. But you even see, too, before that, where Bakugo is really not really friendly, even with these guys that are his friends. He's only concerned with himself. He's very, very selfish. And they're smoking it up. They shouldn't be smoking these boys, right? They're the bad boys. But he says, what are you doing smoking? I told you that could get me in trouble.
So he's a bit of a goody two-shoes for his permanent record. That's what he cares about.
Famous, yeah, and that UA stuff and whatnot. And he's really you're going to ruin it for me. All that stuff, but he does get consumed. But I'll give it back to you where I'm telling you, the look of Midoriya on top of this building, because they have to land. And, All Might has to kind of get rid of Midoriya at this point. And it looks like Midoriya's like a zombie.
Zombie Midoriya has landed almost dead. And then All Might is not impressed. He's like, oh, jeez, I can't believe this. And then he says, I hope somebody downstairs will let you in because I've got no time. He's about to launch. All right, you're on your own game. Goodbye. But then that's when Midoriya stops. And he said, wait, stop. And then he asks the big question, even without a quirk, can I still be a hero? Can someone without a quirk become a hero like you? And this gets All Might thinking. Quirks are, and then All Might has some big problems, as we do see.
Problems.
But dumb, and then he starts steaming And that's not just because he's hot stuff, Jim.
No.
Because he starts steaming. There's big, and Midoriya just like starts his sad sack monologue here, so much so that he doesn't understand or he doesn't see his hero steaming and fading away into the smoke. But he says all his shtick about his not being having a quirk and being quirkless, and he's always been picked on, and that's why he wants to be just like All Might, just like the coolest person. And he thinks that being a hero and saving people, that's just the coolest thing you can do, just like All Might, doing it all with the fearless smile. And he wants to be just like him. And then he sees, oh my goodness, All Might is this crazy skinny dude out of nowhere.
Real skinny dude. And I like the idea, at least they do reference at the point where Midoriya's like, are you a phony? Like, what happened here? And we'll find out as he goes. But this is the cool thing with this. Once you get the not All Might, who he tries to explain in the idea of like people sucking in their gut at the pool. Like, he's able to force himself to do the All Might thing and look like All Might for, he says, 3 hours a day about. But when this is done, you know, you let out the gut. This is him where he kind of reverts to the skinny guy. And it all comes down from him being attacked years ago, and it was kept quiet. So that's a big thing. Even when he's just there and Midoriya turns around like, what are you? An imposter, you're so thin. When you end up having him first try to say, no, I'm All Might, blood just comes pouring out of his mouth. I mean, he is hurting. He's hurting. And what I like about it, though, is now we get rid of, it's not like now he's the skinny guy, like, look at me, I'm this. Now it's legit, straight up, you know, All Might talking truth here. Mm-hmm. And just kind of sounds like, oh, yeah, you know, I had this fearless smile that you love. That was just me being afraid. Like I would smile to myself and I keep smiling to keep myself from crying almost or getting too scared. So that's one thing. But he ends up showing this, you know, wound I got and it goes in. He got his stomach removed. He's withering away. He can only do this 3 hours a day. But when he gets to the deal of, you know, can you be a hero without a quirk? You get that like, well, you know what? Not really. Like, he's not going to lie. As All Might, I think, like, if he didn't have this, I think he'd be like, you can be whatever you can, young man, and go up. But it's not that. He says, no.
He's got nothing to hide, so he's just hitting him with the hard facts.
And he does hit him with the hard facts, almost like the idea where he realizes that he could end up turning this kid's life into something that's complete and utter nonsense if he lies. And this is not the lie. Even when he says at one point, this is the real me, no fake muscles, no. And that throws Midoriya up. Fake muscles? He doesn't. So this is the real talk deal and says, no, I don't think that can be. And I really like the way he says it. And he says, first off, the reason I smile is to stave off the overwhelming pressure and fear I feel. A pro should always be ready to risk his life. So he's saying, I start smiling because I know this is scary stuff, but I'm going to make it so I can get through. But then says, without power, can one become a hero? No, I should think not. It's not like any like it really is straight talk. And then even offers some really good advice, actually, and says, you could still be a police officer. You can end up doing that. There are ways to be a hero without the you just aren't going to be a superhero. You're not going to be one of us. And he even says villain custody officers, they get mocked, but that's admirable work.
Noble.
It almost feels like I liked this, like, you almost want to think that they don't want you to like this All Might as he really is, but I kind of like him the more I've read this first chapter. And
he's very down to earth.
Because, yeah, he is like, well, I do this, almost like he's stuck in that job of this is what I do, and I don't really, I'm not the greatest and as great as anybody thinks, but that's kind of what I do, so I'm going to do it, but I don't want you wasting your time. And he says, be realistic. You know, don't do this. And he ends up, okay, he walks out. He goes into the stairwell. All Might. And he's like, okay, I got to get this guy. And oh, no, he doesn't have the soda bottle. Uh-oh. And then looks and sees just a huge explosion across the cityscape. And he's like, oh, no, I think I done messed up. And we know that that's the case. And we see then, and I'll go back to you where you have the slime monster going, pretty much, you know, using Bakugo to just rip through the downtown, and we do see what mettle the heroes have here, especially ones that we already saw that were all big talk before, but now this is actually not just some rando who steals a purse and goes. This is actually some trouble. This is actually like what we'd consider a real villain in a comic book universe. These guys and gals don't want anything to do with that, right?
No, this is a big threat, and we do see all the heroes that we saw earlier. They've got some real convenient excuses out of nowhere.
Mount Lady jumped over buildings to do a flying kick in that guy at the beginning. Right now, you tell him what stops her here.
A one-way street.
One-way street.
My
That's
only
all
weakness.
that is. And we said the only one that we're going to give a pass to is Kameo Woods, who is a guy who's kind of made of wood. And what's happening here, just to spell it out, you do have this slime monster who is using the fire quirk of Bakugo and just setting everything on fire and going
It's
through.
like Bakugo's fighting back against it, so you got the explosions going, meanwhile the slime monster's trying to get control, so it's just a mess.
Yeah,
and
it's
the
a
whole
complete
street's
mess.
getting lit up here. And we do see, actually, a nice touch is Kamui Woods is saving the Bully Boys, getting them out of the harm's way. But then we see all the other heroes. We see Backdraft, he's the fire hero, and he's dressed, he's like a walking fire hydrant, and he's got the water hands, but he's got his hands full putting out the flames.
You even pointed out to me before, a lot of these heroes, they will come back in this series. This is not just, randos, whatever. This guy should get his hero card taken away. I mean, he is definitely set up to at least fight this deal going down.
He's the only one equipped for the job.
Yeah, and in a way that he probably could end up not kill. Like, there could be some that could even say, listen, I could do this, but I'm afraid I'm going to kill this kid that's in there. And not Backdraft. He should be in there right now. Just he's nonsense. And
because
so
effectively, it's like the damage of a villain, but they got a hostage situation here as well. So they have to deal with that at the same time.
You got the guy who's dressed up in his baseball outfit. I don't know what he's going to do. But again, though, there's no glory to them in dying. Like, oh my God, like this is where you see these heroes and the way that it does progress, the idea that a lot of heroes and quirks are out there. So there are people who have become heroes for the wrong reasons, and they don't want to save people. They only want to do stuff that benefits them.
That's the thing. They're going to wait for the right person to show up, even though they're the heroes. They should be the ones stepping in, but it's not their problem. They're going to wait for the guy who's got the right equipment, the right quirk to sort out this problem.
And I like the way it's played out, because even the crowd's like, boy, that's some hardcore villain here. Earlier, they were like, oh, what's this guy doing? The big monster guy that stole stuff. And like, that guy's nothing. Hey, honey, I'm going to be late home from work stuff. This is where, like, oh, my God, things are going. And you have people yelling, like, go get him, heroes. And everybody's just like, like looking around. Yeah, that's not my thing.
I don't want to do that.
It's really, it gets you angry. When even with it being Bakugo, you get angry because he is still just a kid, and they're supposed to be the heroes, and so it's really, really crazy. Well, you end up getting Skinny All Might show up. He's already spelled out that he can't really be a hero much, and he says here the timing that it took with the extra stuff with Midoriya and all that has really hampered him being All Might to stop this. So even now it's a little different. When you're like, well, what am I going to do now? I'm the skinny guy who's spitting up blood. That's a little different than the other heroes that have their full-out quirks not doing it.
He can't help at all here.
Yeah, but it's still, he's upset and trying to get this. Well, you have Midoriya who took, the advice, and he seems to be like, okay, I'm going to be more realistic. I'm going to go now. And even hears people making fun of him in his head and says, yeah, even the best said that I couldn't do this. This is a shame, but maybe I should be more realistic. Maybe I should get on with my life. And you end up where he walks by and he sees a crowd gathered and there's a villain, all these things going. He almost walks away, which would have been crazy. Like he's like, that's not my deal. I used to get all excited for that, right? Oh, I used to this morning. But now I'm like, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to get more upset. But then he sees that, and hears people say, oh my God, there's a kid, oh my God. And what the big thing though is as he goes and looks, he realizes that this is Bakugo, and he realizes, and also thinks that it's his fault. The idea the monster got away, he's not blaming All Might, he's blaming himself. When he sees that this is Bakugo, he cannot, because even then he says, oh, a kid's there, I know the pain, and that's really well set up. He knows how horrific and how bad
he almost died.
Is, yeah. So then he sees it's Bakugo who just has these eyes like, please, somebody help me. And he reacts. And it's so exciting but you think he's going to die because what is he going to do? But he ends up not thinking of that. That's the big play
He
here.
runs straight in.
He runs straight in. And with that, then you do have, and it's weird too, where you have, I guess, the slime monster, when he gets you, he kind of knows your name because, that's that kid Deku, where he kind of knows. And I don't think that's coming from, it seems like it could have been coming from Bakugo. But
it could be both because they have the different fonts, kind of.
The weird thing about it, though, it wouldn't be, it's that kid. It's that. I think maybe it should play out more in the translation of who is that kid? Deku? It felt weird, but it is Deku just going. He drops his book. He's going in. The best thing he can muster then when he realizes, I don't know what I'm going to do here, he throws his backpack at the monster here, and then just kind of tries to go in to do something, yells Kachan. He's all the stuff, and that is Bakugo. He starts thinking of, well, I just started doing this. I may die. But he thinks, why did I do this? And he has a bunch of reasons. The reason of wanting to help people. The idea that, he doesn't want people to be bullied. And in this point, Bakugo is kind of, the tables have turned and whatnot. But with that, the big thing is he just says, you look like you needed saving.
And he puts on a big smile.
Yep, he tries to smile. I love that it says grin. That's a weird stuff. But it's really good. And so with that, though, this inspires All Might, who was watching. Skinny All Might, gets the power and then steps up and stops it in a way that I really love it too, because he's still spitting blood out. He's not feeling well doing this, but he ends up doing the Detroit Smash this time. And the idea that Midoriya has actually inspired him so much that he changes the weather patterns, they say. And I mean, everybody's going nuts. They love it because he has saved the day. And everybody's, that's amazing, a single punch. This is more like the whole deal at DC. Batman, one punch guy. This is one punch the weather. He ended up, it's so good. And he ends up smiling and then goes away. And so with all that, though, the heroes end up really, in my mind, feeling like they were just thrown under the bus by a Midoriya who has no quirk, ended up stepping up and trying to stop this monster when they wouldn't. So they kind of feel, so they give him crap.
Yeah, they put him on blast.
Yeah, he even says, everybody's yelling at me. But they're all impressed with Bakugo because he's just a kid who was able to try to fight back. And they saw his quirk, which is a pretty powerful quirk. You get this one guy who comes over, man, with that quirk, you're pretty cool. You could be my sidekick. You already know that is something that he does not want to hear.
He ain't going to be a sidekick.
There is no way. And again, that's where I think you realize when you're reading this, and if you are reading this as your first manga, or just getting into manga, which we hope a lot of people do join us with that, you realize, I think at that point, like, how do you get the characters so well? Maybe it's because it's just at first they give you that one dimension, but they do it so well. But when this guy says that there is no way that Bakugo wants to hear that or would ever even think of that. And it's so well done where what's going to happen then? You could go very, Hollywood type ending type deal of, man, this is where Bakugo realizes that Midoriya really does have something and he wants to be his best friend. And you know what? You say, no, that wouldn't be right, because Bakugo goes and says, how dare you think you could save me? Like, you piece of crap. You think with your quirkless nonsense you could save me? No way. You're still bad. You're still a piece of, I don't like you. Get out of town. And it's funny, Midoriya at this point, it's almost like none of this matters to him because he's now saved somebody. He's done his, he can move on now. He's still at the point.
He's satisfied.
This isn't the idea of now I can be a hero. They were wrong. And he's like, I did that. It was nice. I saved somebody. Now I'm going to get on with my life. And again, there's little bits where you could see that if he didn't stop at that point, it's all over. He'll not. And at this point where he's like, yeah. And if All Might doesn't come to catch him, it's all over as well, because he even says, I'm going to thank All Might on the website. This is it. He's not going to try to get him or anything. All Might then just shows up. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And it's cool, too. He got rid of the cameras and stuff. Again, though, this is different. The first time they met, he was like, yeah, what am I doing now? Well, I'm All Might, but there's no cameras around. Now, all of a sudden, All Might has changed and comes in and says, I got rid of those cameras. I didn't need those reporters or whatnot because I want to thank you. And I have a proposal for you. And this is where he reverts then to skinny, disgusting, blood-spitting, freaking, All Might. And he says, that's when he actually says, I've been nothing but fake muscles and insincerity that I said earlier. And Midoriya doesn't realize, he doesn't have any idea what's going on. And All Might really spells out the idea of what really, you ended up showing me what it is to be a hero. This idea of having, everybody has quirks, except you sad sack. But when it's almost the idea of everybody's special, nobody's special. So when everybody's getting these quirks who want to be superheroes, they're just doing it to be famous. The world has changed because everybody has that. And he ends up saying, that's not what makes the hero. The hero, and it plays off well with when he was younger. He says the hero is a young person. Usually all the heroes realize when they're very young that they jump into action before thinking because they want to save people. That's what you did. You can be a hero. And says, and it's so nice because you know that he means it at this point, and says, don't worry about that. You end up having what it takes and you are pure. It's like the pure of heart, and says, or whatever. And he says, this is what he wanted his mom to say. Back when he said, Mom, I want to be like that. And she said, I'm sorry. He says, Mom, this is what I wanted you to say. And you have this like yelling, you can be a hero. So you wonder how that is. And there's that little hint of proposal. But then at the end, you have them say fantasy became reality. I forgot to mention this, but this is the story of how I became a great hero. And that's a great ending. It really is. And you're like, holy crap. Again, me and you talking about this, and this will be a little longer than the normal episode. I knew I was going to start gushing about things and talking because I love this chapter so much.
But how can you not love it? It ticks all the boxes that we've been looking for.
In a reading club type deal, it's kind of weird to give full out scores in my mind. So we said we're not going to give number scores or whatever, but I'll tell you, this is pretty much perfect. And anybody who wants to get into manga, this is such a great jumping on point. It is so well done and so much that you really see how great it can be and how great the story, the pacing, all that. The character work is awesome. And that's really me and you, just to tell everybody going into this, me and you are big character work guys and stuff. And so when you get this, you're falling in love with the characters right away. Even like I said, All Might, who kind of is sus at the beginning and then disgusting, whatever, but when he actually thanks this little kid without a quirk for, reminding me how to be a hero. And I have a little proposal for you, which we'll find out is pretty cool as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, what else? This is near perfect, if not pretty much perfect. I mean, it's great.
There's no wasted space. This this chapter is 56 pages, but I mean, it just flies by. You know what I mean? Like, you're so invested. You're hooked in right from the start on the characters and the world, and it flows so well. The art is so good. There's no problems with the art. Like, it's a perfect package, Jim.
Yeah, and like you said, even when you're going, you have characters, these heroes that'll show up later. You said that you know more. You're more learned and have read all of the chapters. I have not, so a lot of things that I'm going through are, this is new. Not this chapter. I've read about 1,000,000 times, but still. But also, even like you pointed out, where you had that lady who got robbed and has the bubble around her. When
There's always something new you spot every time. And how many times have me and you gone back and checked this out? And every time, we still have that same level of satisfaction.
It's so great. Yeah, you would think we'd be bored of this. I'm not.
Never gets old.
When you even have where the slime monster first comes out, you see, All Might was coming out of the convenience mart, whatever, with his groceries as the skinny All Might. And you don't know what's going on, but when you go back and see that, you're like, yep, there he was. And that's why he was on the scene, all that, which he didn't want to be or whatnot. He was getting groceries. But yeah, so it's crazy. It's so good. But that is the end of that first chapter. Like I said, we're planning on this being little nuggets of podcasts because once you get into the main run, you're, third less pages and things like that.
It'll be quicker reads.
It'll be a little quicker deal, but I'm glad that we enjoyed this as much as we did once again. But yeah, everybody go over to the Twitter at Weird Manga, right? And then go to the Instagram Weird Science Manga, and then go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Weird Science Manga. All that'll be in the show notes, but I hope everybody is excited to go through the whole My Hero Academia, as well as all the other podcasts that we're doing as well, as more of a way to get everybody involved, and especially new readers and people who might have been a little bit afraid or not knowing where to go to kind of get into the manga.
Jump on in with us.
And it's one of those things. You could say that it's like, oh, look at these. It's almost like the idea of being a hero and not being a hero to go with this My Hero Academia deal because of the idea. It's not just like, oh, we're going to crack the code or whatever. We do enjoy when people end up saying, oh, man, I started reading manga. Because when people start reading manga, there's this crazy deal where they get obsessed with it for like right away. It's like Andrew in Belfast ends up jumping into read manga. 2 days later, he's already read 75 chapters of Chainsaw Man.
He jumps in big.
That's the awesome stuff about it. And I remember when I got into it, which was not that much, a year or so ago. Yeah, I couldn't stop reading it. That's so great. So that's kind of what we're playing with here. So hopefully everybody gets involved, and even people who were involved enjoy listening to all this.
Trip down memory lane.
That is that. And I said to you, we'll start next chapter with maybe a gem of the week or gem of the chapter thing. We'll do that. Now, we've already gone way too much with this, so we'll call it a day here. But yeah, we'll start doing something specific, quirk of the chapter or gem of the chapter. We'll do that, but we'll figure that out. But thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science.
It's the revolution.
Weird science.
It's the revolution.
Weird science.
It's the revolution.